3, then it's going to get the +1/+2 counter. So it's going to be a 4, 5. Then we have the switch. Oh my god, I'm so confused. Oh! Hey, what's up everybody? Platform Disciple here with another Weird Card Wednesday. And as you have gathered from the first clip, this one's going to be a real doozy, and it's because it delves into Magic's layer system, which is a set of rules that most players are not particularly familiar with, and I had to really study up on this before I was ready to, I guess, record this take of the video. Obviously, I tried more than once to kind of figure this all out. So anyways, the card we're going to be looking at is Phantasmal Fiend, which is a common originally printed in Alliances. And the card doesn't look so confusing on the surface, actually, but we'll get back to that. So it's a common. The set symbol is silver, but it is a common. That's a feature of Alliances. Its set symbol is silver regardless of rarity, and also Alliances notably had different artworks for cards within the block. So there's 2 artworks for Phantasmal Fiend. Pick your favorite, I guess. And it's a 3 colorless, 1 black, 1/5 creature. And its creature type is Illusion. The card says Summon Phantasm, but that's kind of a outdated, line of text there. The card actually reads 1 black, +1, -1 until end of turn, and 1 colorless, 1 blue. Switch Phantasmal Fiend's power and toughness until end of turn. Effects that alter Phantasmal Fiend's power alter its toughness instead, and vice versa. But notably, that last little bit of text has been removed because it's actually been added to the rules in a way, as opposed to being unique to Phantasmal Fiend. So the new effect reads, switch Phantasmal Fiend's power and toughness until end of turn. And let's quickly mention Windreaver, because this is another card that has the same sort of rules scenario associated with it, but I decided to go with Phantasmal Fiend because it's older and even less playable. Both of these cards see play basically nowhere, which is probably good because of the amount of headache that these rules scenarios cause. But Windreaver notably is an elemental, so and it's got a couple other abilities, so maybe it'll see play in Commander here and there. Really not. I checked on EDHREC. Basically, these cards both have less than 1% play rate, so they don't really see play anywhere. That's the end of story. They don't have any applications, but the rules scenarios that they present are very real and can happen in real games. So let's go over it. So Phantasmal Fiend. Let's talk about a sequence of play. Let's say first I give him, or it, +1, -1 with its first ability. Then I switch its power and toughness, and then I give it +1, -1 again. And let's assume that we resolve these effects independently. So let's talk about what the sequence is. Take a minute to guess what its power and toughness are going to be at the end. Just pause the video, and hopefully you've done that. Let's talk about what actually happens. So first, we give it +1, -1, and it turns from a 1/5 into a 2/4. You've probably figured that out. Next, and you probably figured this out too, you switch its power and toughness, and it changes from a 2/4 to a 4/2. Easy enough. The next thing is where it gets a little weird, which is you give it +1, -1 again, and instead of becoming a 5/1, it actually becomes a 3/3. And the reason for that is the layers system, which determines the order that these abilities are checked, which is not in time order. It's based on the type of effect they are. And switch power and toughness effects always happen last. I can't stress that clearly enough. No matter what order you use the abilities in, the switch always happens last. Likewise, if you switch a creature's power and toughness twice or an even number of times, so 2 times, 4 times, or 6 times, and so on, its power and toughness are effectively not switched, and you can ignore that switch. All right, so instead of it being a 5-1, it's a 3-3, because what really happens is it gets +1, -1, then it gets +1, -1, and then it switches. Even though that's not the order it happened in time, that's the order of the layers. So let's go over layers. The layer system determines the order static effects happen in, and that covers a lot of different things like copy effects, control effects like gain control of a creature, color changes, type changes, and so on. But most importantly for this video is going to determine power and toughness changes, which is the only thing we're going to talk about because I don't want to get these scenarios even more complicated than they already are. And also those power and toughness changes are probably the most relevant. Notably, these switch effects can actually occur in a real environment. I'm going to mention 2 cards that you may see, because they're pretty decent cards. So the first one is Invert/Invent, which you might see because it's currently pretty recent. The invert effect switches the power and toughness of each of up to 2 target creatures, which people probably don't want to use that effect very often, but you could see this card in draft, so it's very possible you see this sort of scenario. And then the other card that you might see is going to be Twisted Image, I believe it is. Yes, it's Twisted Image, because that card has actually seen some play in Modern, because the card can kill a Birds of Paradise and draw you a card. So these effects, they exist. It can happen in a real game, not just these wild scenarios. Okay, so let's go over the power and toughness layers, and I'm going to put them on the screen so it's easy to follow, and I'm going to give them A through E, which is how they are described on the Wizards of the Coast website. So the A tier is going to be effects from power and toughness that are affecting CDAs, which stands for Characteristic Defining Abilities. This, to sum it up quickly, is going to be effects that are star effects, like Tarmogoyf. Cards that have a star that is in the power and toughness box that's determined by something else. So that effect will always happen first. A is first, E is last. So let's continue. B is effects that set power and toughness to a specific value. And the example we're going to use is Serendib Sorcerer, who can turn cards into 0/2s. Next are power and toughness changing effects that don't set to a specific value. In other words, cards that do pluses or minuses, which would be Phantasmal Fiend's first ability, or cards like Giant Growth, anything that's just a regular power and toughness change. Next is D, which is power and toughness changes that are affected by counters. The example we're going to use to make it harder for us, if we actually needed to make it harder, is Armor Throw, because it is a very weird and old counter that gives +1/+2, which means it's asymmetrical, which makes it that much harder for us to figure it out. And then last, you have power and toughness switches. So that is the order they resolve in, regardless of the order they happened in time. So we're going to go over a Nightmare Rules scenario and see if you can all figure it out, and then I will give you the answers here. So let's start with Phantasmal Fiend is in play. We use his first ability and give it +1/-1. We use Armor Throw to put a +1/+2 counter on it. Then we switch Phantasmal Fiend's power and toughness. Then we use Serendib Sorcerer to make it a 0/2, and then finally we use Phantasmal Fiend's first ability again and give it +1/-1. Pause the video, take your time, try to figure this out. If you have given up and don't want to pause and don't want to try, I completely understand, because believe me, I've certainly had my own experiences with this scenario, just making it. Okay, so let's go over slowly. Phantasmal Fiend starts as a 1/5. Then we use his first ability, and it becomes a 2/4. It gets +1, -1, and becomes a 2/4. Next, we are going to put a Armor Thrall +1/+2 counter on it. So we resolve the abilities in order of A through E. So it gets +1, -1 first, and then it gets the +1/+2 counter. So it becomes a 3/6. Next, we are going to do the power and toughness switch. Once again, we are going to resolve these A through E. So it gets +1, -1, then it gets +1/+2. Then it has the switch. So we have a 6/3. Finally, we've reached the part where it maybe has become a little difficult. Serendib Sorcerer, we turn it into a 0/2. We resolve this A through E again, but now it doesn't reflect the time order. So the first thing that's going to happen is that it becomes a 0/2. Then we are going to give it +1, -1. So it's a 1/1. Then we are going to give it the power and toughness from the counter, so it becomes a 2/3. Then we apply the switch last, and it becomes a 3/2. All right. Last thing that we're going to do is the final +1, -1. So once again, A through E. So we resolve Serendib's Sorcerer's ability first, so it's a 0/2. Then we do the 2 +1, -1s, and it goes from a 0/2 to a 2/0. And for those of you who are putting up question marks here, the layers have to completely resolve before you check state-based effects. So the creature is not dead. That's also why creatures that are 0/0s that have +1/+1 counters on them don't die. Then we do the +1/+2 counter, and we have a 3/2. Finally, we do the switch, and we have a 2/3. Oh boy, that was rough. I hope you were all able to keep up with me. Hopefully my visual aids are sufficient. But suffice it to say, thank God they don't have cards like Phantasmal Fiend running around everywhere. Power and toughness switching is not always intuitive. As a matter of fact, it's almost always not intuitive. And hopefully that you've learned something new from this video. It might turn up in one of your games. Maybe you can, I don't know, swing this to your advantage at some point. Or at least sound like a complete Magic the Gathering nerd. All right, that covers Phantasmal Fiend. I'm not a big fan of the card anymore, to be honest. Anyways, we're doing a giveaway as per usual, and I'm giving away a Altered Dream Fracture. Custom art, I think it turned out pretty well. It's pretty cute, and I am proud of it because it's one of the few alters I've done that is completely my own material here. I didn't extend the artwork. I didn't trace or use something else as a reference. I came up with the idea of Dream Fracture being an egg head fracturing, and hopefully some of you will appreciate it. If you are looking to win the altar, of course, as per usual, the link will be in the description to the giveaway. And it's been a lot of fun. Hopefully you enjoyed your college level Magic the Gathering rules course for today. And until next time, everybody, peace out.